Let's go to question 18 now. Of course, we want to start with the prompt whenever possible. And here, the prompt is just asking us to conform to the conventions of standard English. In other words, it's a grammar question. So let's start reading. On this date, a gust of wind wreaked havoc on global trade. Ever Given, a container vessel, became lodged in the Suez Canal, a major shipping route between Europe and Asia. The vessel took 6 days to dislodge, in part due to its sheer size. It's as heavy as 2,000 blue whales when fully loaded. So let's talk a little bit about colons and semicolons and all of that kind of stuff. A semicolon is for two independent clauses. For instance, John went to the mall. He bought shoes. For a colon, the first part is an independent clause and the second part is anything that describes the first part. An independent clause is something that can be on its own. So for instance, there was only one thing Scooby could do: run. So now the important thing here is the word anything, because the part after the colon could be a single word like we just had, or a full sentence like the next one. There was only one thing Scooby could do. He thought for a moment and decided to run. So those are both descriptions of the first part. One just happens to be more long-winded than the other. For a long dash, one of them is a colon and two is a set of parentheses. So for instance, there was only one thing Scooby could do, long dash, run, or Scooby, who had been in this situation many times before, decided to run. So there you have the semicolon, the colon, and the long dash. And the colon definition is perfect here. The vessel took 6 days to dislodge, in part due to its sheer size. So the statement is saying the size is the reason why the vessel got stuck. And then here is a description of the size. It's as heavy as 2,000 blue whales when fully loaded. So even though that technically that's weight, it's kind of giving us a mental image of this thing that's giant. So you have the first part being an independent clause. The blue and the green parts put together could have been its own sentence. And then the red part describing that first part. So the answer here is B. One more thing I'd like to mention here as well is that A is a comma slice, a comma splice. A comma splice is when you have two independent clauses joined by a comma. So the vessel took six days to dislodge, in part due to its sheer size. That could be a sentence. It's as heavy as 2,000 blue whales when fully loaded. That could also be a sentence. The way to join two independent clauses is you can use a semicolon or a comma, fanboys. If you use just a comma, that's called a comma splice. So some people who are watching this are really going to need to know why A is wrong, and that's the reason why.